the packages lecture. Last time we spoke about the story forms, and we showed you how we start from a reader, then we build a VO, then a VO-SAT-VO, and then package is the next largest story form. That's a super common story form for reporters to have to turn, oftentimes more than one a day. So I want to take a look at packages because this is what you guys are going to be doing for most of the semester. So after you do your VO-SAT-VOs, from now on, you're going to be doing different forms of a package. So how do you create an awesome package? It starts with just watching as many as you can. It really helps to like get inspired by other people's stories. Visually, you can say, oh, that's a cool shot. I like that angle. I'm going to try that. Or just the storytelling, like how do you evoke emotion in people? So as you're watching these stories, we're going to watch a couple of them today, and there's plenty on the website that you can take a look at to kind of get an example of what packages are and how to make good packages. Pay attention to the following things. So like really actively watch these so that you can start implementing these techniques in your own packages. Sound is a big one. We have a separate lecture just about making audio more visual because that's something that people usually forget. So pay attention to like natural sounds. Pay attention to how long the sound bites are. Pay attention to the framing of the video. What angle is the video shot at, or what distance is the camera from whatever they're shooting? How many seconds is the shot up? So pay attention to how many seconds you're looking at something, whether it's B-roll, maybe you're looking at a soundbite and then it's covered by B-roll 5 seconds later. So get an idea of that pacing, because I think when you start editing them, one of the biggest kind of mistakes that beginning package editors make is that they just have really long B-roll clips or really long interviews. And when you watch really good packages, you'll notice that the pacing is pretty fast. So we talked about 3 seconds per B-roll clip, but also start thinking about, okay, how long are your sound bites? And are your sound bites covered with video? And then also, what kind of emotions does it evoke in you? So last time we watched this package here. This is a great example of a package. Now we're going to move into like another harder news style package. And this is a topic that is covered a lot. So especially a couple of years ago when the Black Lives Matter movement started, that was such a lead story every day because there was a really big shift in our focus to these stories of particularly Black men getting killed. And after a while, those packages can start looking a little bit redundant, and you don't want to desensitize your audience to these stories that are really important. But that's how news works. It's like once something comes out, then a lot of other stories come out that are similar to that because now everybody's talking about it. So same thing as you see in the Me Too movement. Now everybody's talking about it, and that's a story every day. So how do you make each story unique, and how do you do justice to each story? Let's take a look at this one, and then pay attention to the techniques that they use to make this a little bit different than that same news package that you've seen again and again.
1 year later. 1 year later.
It sometimes seems like I didn't care nobody else.
Harvey is here now.
I mean, I come get the trash off of it, but you know.
And he was here then.
I was up there. I didn't know what was going on. I heard him hollering.
I'll never forget how they dragged him away like an animal.
I'll never forget the day that it happened.
Sometimes I can still hear the screams of him going into the paddy wagon.
Which is why Leslie came back to the corner today.
I actually remember walking past when they were painting this, and I'll never forget all the chaos in the city, you know, all the uproar, all the terror, all the fear, you know, all the loud noises, the helicopters.
Power of the people.
Vacant buildings, now canvases, commemorating the good and the bad of 2015.
It was 1 year ago that things like these bricks became weapons, and Baltimore became a nest of unrest.
It's like a memory that never fades, basically.
I'll never forget the riot. Everything was on fire. It was just terrible.
The sounds still resonate.
And I remember there was a crowd of people right here.
All day.
We will fight for Freddie Gray!
I'll never forget those riots.
It's just sad the way that it happened.
I think of Freddie all the time. I think of Freddie all the time.
I'll never
And
forget.
I never forget.
I'll never forget.
I'll never forget.
I'll never forget. I'll never forget Freddie Gray.
In West Baltimore,
It'll get better.
Kathleen Cairns, Fox 45 News.
Okay, so what did you guys think of this package?
There's a lot of sound on tape, like the helicopter and sirens, and the repetitive word usage.
Yeah, I thought that was really effective. Like that you had people repeat that same thing over and over again. I thought that actually was really emotional. And start when you go out and shoot things, even if you're not covering super hard news, like pay attention to the helicopter sound. Like get that audio on camera. Don't just show me that. I mean, it's fantastic that they showed the helicopter because that's what they're talking about. But don't just show me, let me hear it too. And so you also heard a lot of those noises, and especially when you're doing this type of story. I don't know how many of you watched the video of Freddie Gray, the real video that was released that I've aired many times, but you can get desensitized to like watching this horrific stuff happen. And I thought it was really powerful that they decided to remove the video and just use these murals, and then you could hear him screaming underneath, and it made you hear it again. So if you had already heard it too many times and maybe you stopped caring, it makes you care again, I think, just by packaging it in a different way. What did you guys think about how many people they interviewed? There were a lot of people interviewed in that, and it was pretty short. So it was 1 minute and 40 seconds, and they talked to a lot of people in that time. So how about the soundbite length? So you have to get really short sound bites, and yet they were really emotional. Do you guys like this package?
Yeah.
Make you look at things a little differently? Yeah. Well, I like this package a lot. I think anytime you can put an artistic spin on something like this, that's generally hard to make creative. I think this really brought out a lot more emotion than what it would have just been if it was generic and like a template. So I want you guys to be creative with the way that you shoot stories. I also want you to be creative with the types of stories that you pitch for this class, and then when you go on to create packages, if you work in TV news. This is a totally different type of package, but it's the same concept. It's a video that's edited with sound bites together to tell some kind of story. Totally different story, totally different mood and emotion. Let's take a look at this and then think about how you find stories and the type of stories that you want to create and how you're going to pitch these story ideas for this class.
Like most guys their age, Jason, Billy, and Zachary spend a lot of time playing video games.
Guess what? A game where like.
Unlike most guys their age, they're living rent-free because of it.
Well, that didn't go well.
All they have to do is stream live video of themselves on a site called Twitch as they play.
I'm actually live right now. Right now, currently, Cherokee News is doing a cover story of us.
That's the small price they pay to live at Stream House ABQ in Northeast Albuquerque.
Are your friends jealous of you?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yeah. I mean, this is a dream. At the same time, I've never done anything like this, and I've always wanted to.
They started streaming earlier this month, and they each game at least 21 hours a week.
Hey, thanks for the follow, TMSA23. You followed during a live stream, you lucky person, you.
The guys who made Stream House ABQ a reality, local entrepreneurs Simon Kubiak and Jason Montoya.
It started probably in middle school or early years of high school.
Video game lovers themselves, they say they want to pave the way for amateur gamers to go pro, gaining enough followers online to make money through ads. The gamers give tips, commentary, or just chat with viewers.
I consider it kind of a show, you know, because we go live every day.
They could have anywhere from 50 to 250 people watching.
And they tune in every single day. They watch us some people watch us the whole day. It's astounding to me.
It surprised us a little too. I mean, why watch when you could just play?
Because it's a community, and you can, because you can interact and chat with the person that's broadcasting. You create a little bit of a friendship, I guess.
Lizane Mitri, KRQE News 13.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on this one?
It's a little slow pace.
Slow pace? How would you have done it differently?
Just like the previous one, I like the previous one because it was like fast paced, so you didn't have like time to get bored.
But with this one in the middle, you kind of get like, now you should like finish it up. I mean, it's too long.
Right, and this one was 144. So that's another thing that for a lot of you guys, when you start making packages, you're gonna have like a 3-minute 30 thing, and you're gonna think it's worth 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and oftentimes it's not. And when you're an objective viewer, even 1 minute and 44 seconds can feel really long. So that's a hard part of the editing process, is really like breaking it down to be physically shorter, but then also understanding that your pacing needs to be picked up, especially if you're doing a story like this, where it's geared towards younger viewers. Younger people generally have much shorter attention spans and are expecting even more. Like they had a couple of sound bites in there, or a couple of gnats, like they had like the little game sound, but I think it would have been better if they included a lot more of that, much more fast paced. I think that would have been fit the style more. It was like they were telling old people about what young people did almost. That's kind of how it felt. Like it was geared towards a very traditional story form. So as you're looking at these, you're like, oh, well, that's good enough to air, but how would you make it better? Like what would you do to enhance it, to make it more special, and then implement that on your own projects? Did you want to say something about it?
I was saying that I think it would be better to like, because they're like, how do your friends feel? There's like just, I think it would be better if it's like, oh, like because of Games with Free, tell me this, or like more like a personal, like I didn't feel like a connection with these guys. Like if they're like, oh, like we're in college and like it's hard to bear, like, oh yeah, like I relate to that. But like they're just like, yeah, our friends are jealous, we play video games. Like, that's like I didn't really care.
Right, that's super important. That's a great point, that you have to be relatable somehow. You have to be able to connect with people on their level. So start thinking about that when you do your own stories. Like, how are you going to connect with your viewers? How are you going to use all of those things that we looked at in this list, the visuals, the sounds, the framing, all of those things to like really make an impact with people. I want to take a look at one story that I aired when I was a producer. And oftentimes when you're producing content, you get content from a lot of other stations that you're affiliated with. And in this case, this same story was available from 2 different news outlets. So for me, I watched both of them and I picked one of them that I thought was better to air. So let's watch both of these, and then you think about which one you think is better. They're both aired. They're both good. But I personally feel like one of them kind of made a lasting impact on me more than the other. So let's watch those and then just notice how you're feeling as you're looking at these 2 different versions of the same story.
As the Novi High School football team takes the field, out front, waving the Wildcat flag proudly, is number 24. On the sideline, snapping images, is one proud mother. You see, number 24 usually holds the water bottle. But on this day, Robbie Heil, the special needs senior, is suited up. Mom Debbie thinks she's here just to see Robbie in uniform.
Both teams are gonna get together and get a nice picture.
She has no idea what's in store.
Our team sees him as part of the family.
So when the family learned Robbie's mom has advanced cancer, the Wildcats decide to give Debbie more than just a picture. With the timeout, Novi's new star takes the field to a roaring crowd. And with a hype, number 24 gets the ball, and watch as Robbie runs 20 yards. His mom breaks down as she witnesses Robbie's dream of scoring a touchdown come to life.
It was incredible. I did not know about this.
Even the opposing team took time to honor Robbie.
Robbie, on behalf of South Line Youth, we will present to you this #1 jersey.
Because that's way more important football. Way more important football.
This is his time. Take it, Robbie. And his team has just been so instrumental in helping get him to practice. Like when we came home, and it takes a village to raise my son, and this village has really been outstanding.
No matter how bad a day he's having, it's a smile ear to ear, and an opportunity to put that helmet on tonight. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. I'm pretty sure tears all over the place.
2 students cheering on a champion, a mother overwhelmed with joy, and a true example of a Wildcat.
Wildcat and Robbie Heil.
Okay, so what did you guys think about this story?
really good engagement. We had like a lot of interviews from like many different perspectives, and they're all kind of working together for the same thing. So I feel like you kind of like that message and kind of like that positivity, that teamwork, and a lot of good sound bites, and like the story like progression of like the setup and then the payoff. I thought that was really well planned out.
I agree. I thought it was very cohesive, and they did a very good job of like bringing you through the beginning, middle, and end with like kind of a emotion, not an emotional roller coaster that was uneasy, but I feel like it was like it wasn't monotonous. It was like you felt things as you went through and watched it. Anybody else have anything you want to say about what you feel?
What I think is really hard to in packages in general is to get the spontaneous shots. And they did this here when they like shot a mother on the sidelines while she was crying and getting emotional. And I thought that was really like powerful and visual.
I agree. That's very difficult to get when you're in the moment, but it's super important that you pay attention when you're out shooting things, that you watch for things like that. Watch for people expressing emotions like his mom breaking down, and that you notice that it wasn't just from shot from up here. When the mom was kneeling on the ground crying, the camera was also on the ground looking at her from those angles. So the spontaneous shots are hard enough to get as they are, just because you only have a few seconds to get them, but then to know like what height your camera should be at to really make people feel it is something that really comes with practice and also watching and learning things like this. Does anybody else want to say anything about how you felt about this story or the package, how it was edited or anything? Okay, let's take a look at another version of the story that was the same story, but just created by a different reporter at a different station.
A high school.
So the difference between this two is the first one we watched was a reporter package, and it wasn't a donut. We just saw the package. In this case, because of the way that the video is clipped on YouTube, you're going to see the whole donut. So you'll see the anchor intro and all of that and the package.
One of the greatest things about high school football is how it can unify an entire community.
That happened tonight in Novi. One senior athlete made of memories that will last a lifetime in the Half-Town Cheer. Justin Rose was there and joins us now. Justin?
Yeah, guys, straight out of a movie script. The only way that I could possibly describe the sights and sounds that I saw tonight at Novi High School. Senior running back / hydration manager Robbie Heil easily made the play of the year tonight. The sights and sounds of the Friday Night Lights were extra bright tonight as the stage was set for a moment that will shine in our hearts forever.
This is something we hope to bring some joy, some hopefully some outstanding memories.
Robbie Heil, a senior with Down syndrome, has been an integral part of Wildcat athletics for the last 4 years. And tonight, they proved it. In the second quarter, with just over 10 minutes to go in a tie game, Robbie came in. And just like they practiced, a perfect snap, a clean handoff, and Robbie seeing nothing but green in front of him. Touchdown, Wildcats. But the scene on the sidelines is what takes your breath away. Robbie's mother, Debbie, who is terminally ill with bone cancer, got to see her little boy live his dream.
I got to be around us so emotional when this I'm always in front of the movie of the water boy, whereas people call him the hydration amateur. But he's Rudy tonight. He's Rudy.
Now, both head coaches agreed to the special moments a few days before the game to let him come onto the field and have that moment. And not a dry eye. Not even a dry eye on the set right now. It got me, and I was there.
Okay, so what's the difference?
I feel like the first one we kind of all the information, so we were like on board with it the whole way through because we knew about his mother and we knew about him all the beginning, so we got to see it like develop. This one I feel like they kind of brought each piece of information in individually, its own idea each time, like Robbie's condition, and then that ended, and then his mother's condition, and that felt like it ended. It didn't feel like it was all like continuous and all at the same time. It felt like it was just different parts, I guess. I don't know if that's a little too harsh of a.
No, I agree. I completely agree. Did that affect how you felt about the story?
The first one was just like, oh, okay, oh wow. And this one was like, oh, that's a new piece of information. And then like it was on to the next one. They didn't have time to breathe or like
Right.
digest it.
Giving a story time to breathe when it's emotional is so important, and it's difficult because you try to jam everything in there, and so you put all these sound bites back to back to back to back. You put your reporter track in there, and I think the first one did a way better job of just give it a second, just to breathe, to let people feel something. I think that's a really important part. And also what you brought up about like here's a piece of information, and then here's the next piece of information, and oftentimes it's called like a surprise when you have like a nugget of information that you expect to evoke some kind of emotion, like the mom's cancer thing. They held that in the second one. And sometimes it's like, oh, that was an interesting surprise because I felt, like, oh, I didn't realize that. But I don't think that they did it correctly in the second one. And that's really hard to like understand how you can tell a story and use those pieces of information. And I do think in this one, it was the good judgment call on the first one to let us know from the beginning about the emotional aspect of the story, so we cared the whole time. It wasn't like, oh, that's nice, and then the cancer thing just pops in there at the end. Like it did feel much more well-rounded to like let us know immediately like why we should really care about their story. I think the first one was the one I ended up picking. I thought that one was better because it made me care a little bit more, a lot more nat sounds, a lot more sound bites with the mother. The emotion was there in the first one, whereas the second one was like play-by-play, was sports, which is fine if you're doing a sports report. But when you have that emotional element that you can build up, I think you should lead with that. Is my opinion. Does anybody disagree, or anybody have other thoughts about comparing the two?
I like the shots better in the first one. Like with this one, when they were zooming in on the mother, you could still see the other reporters like getting in the way.
Right.
And it kind of took away from like, at least for me, like if I see somebody being emotional, somebody just got in the way, and it kind of ruined it.
That's a big thing that we talk about in TV newsroom meetings too. I've had bosses who like just tear reporters apart, videographers apart if they get another station in the shot. So you want to make people feel like you're the one there. And often in this intimate stories, you don't want to include other people's cameras in the shot because it does take away from the intimacy that you feel like you would have if there was just one camera. Because you're realizing everyone's watching her. When you see those cameras in the shot, it feels like a little like exploitation kind of. Like it just feels like I shouldn't be a part of this moment because you recognize that she's being watched. Whereas in the first one, you didn't realize that there were cameras there necessarily, and you felt like you were a part of it, and it didn't feel like icky.
I felt like it was too scripted.
It did feel scripted. It did. So you're welcome to go back and watch them again to compare. Those are the subtle things that when you start really getting good at packages and you want to elevate to the next level, you want to watch these things and pay attention to like what really makes people feel differently. Like how can I really be a good storyteller? And packages are a great opportunity to tell stories because you can immerse people into this world with all the nat sounds and everything. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip past this one, but this is just to show the packages can be shot on cell phones, like what you guys are going to be doing in this class, and this is a Rod Carter package that he shot. I thought it was a really good one, so go back and watch that when you have time. I want to get to another comparison here in a second. So let's watch a couple before I get to like what not to do. I also want to point out that the packages that we watched were all reporter packages. They weren't nap packages. Whereas the Ronda Rousey one, that was a nap package because it was just sound bites. All of the stories we just watched had reporters in it. And sometimes that really helps tell the story, especially if you have really good stand-ups. I didn't think that the stand-ups in the first two were particularly amazing. But the first one, at least she tried. She got down, held up the brick, was like, trying to be demonstrative and active. Reporter stand-ups are something that you can really elevate your package if you do it correctly. And one of the people I used to work with, his name is Joe Little. He's known like across the country for being the best at this. Like he is a great reporter, because his stand-ups are so active, and he could shoot and edit and write and all those things, but what is really memorable is how much planning goes into the stand-ups. So he is fantastic about sharing lots of like behind the scenes, like how he creates his stand-ups. So let's just watch one so you can start thinking, if you do want to do reporter stand-ups, how can you be creative? How can you use it to enhance your storytelling? Here's like him deconstructing how he did this stand-up about baseball.
This is Parkview Little League's home field. It's empty now because everyone and their sister literally is flying to Pennsylvania right now to be with the team. And that is going to cost a lot of money. That's where these hats and t-shirts will come into play. This is Parkview Little League's home field. It's empty right now because Parkview Little League's home field. It's empty now because everyone and their sister literally is flying to Pennsylvania right now to be with the team. And that is going to cost a lot of money. That's where these hats and t-shirts will come into play. This is Parkview Little League's home field. It's empty now because everyone and their sister literally is flying to Pennsylvania right now to be with the team. And that is going to cost a lot of money. That's where these hats and t-shirts will come into play.
So what do you guys think? Have you thought of doing videos like this before? And you do it all by yourself, because in today's TV news, like what we talked about before, he's an MMJ, so a lot of people have to shoot by themselves, but that doesn't mean that your stand-ups can't be interactive, demonstrative, and engaging. So he does a lot of awesome stuff. Please click on his name here, follow him on social media, and we'll talk about him a lot throughout the semester because he does a really good job of a lot of things. But I just wanted to introduce you to him now, so you can start following him and kind of paying attention to how he is creative, especially if you want to be a reporter. One of the best ways to get a job is to have active stand-ups on your reel. So start now, start shooting them now. It really helps tell your story in a more fun, creative way. Jeannie Most is also a really fun reporter. So she takes things from a totally different angle, and she tries to make her stories really creative and fun. She's on CNN, but not everybody likes to use her because she's just really out there. I think she's fantastic. So pay attention to the way that she uses writing, sound bites, music, social media, her B-roll, quotes, editing, and some active stand-ups in a couple of these. Let's just watch this one that she made. For the sake of time, I'll skip past the other ones, but please take the time to watch them on your own. Maybe this is something that you can incorporate into your own style. So find reporters that you think are cool or do cool things, and then try to emulate those things in your own packages.
The bite is proving worse than the bark as the internet nips at Hillary for her doggy imitation. Who let the dogs out? Juxtaposing music videos and movie clips.
Bark like a dog.
All because Hillary told a story about an old political ad that featured a dog trained to bark at lies. Wouldn't that come in handy for following around her Republican rival, she said.
Every time they say these things, like, oh, the Great Recession was caused by too much regulation.
Her inner terrier.
She's funny.
I don't know if this was a tribute to the Westminster Dog Show, one that Donald Trump refused to emulate.
If I ever did that, I would be ridiculed all over the place. I won't do it. I'm not going to imitate her. So there'll be no barking.
As if Hillary didn't face ridicule? An actual dog barking interruption at a Trump rally last month was one of the many mocking memes making the rounds.
What was that? Is that a dog? Uh-oh.
It's enough to make triumph the insult, dog.
Senator, is it true you tried to shut down the government so you could go to a Nickelback concert?
Overshadowed on the campaign trail. But Hillary is in the puppy league compared to a guy dubbed Psycho Dog Man for his canine impersonation. An Australian retiree went viral back in 2010 after imitating some scary neighborhood dogs.
They came bounding over.
His imitation was remixed. It even scared real dogs. Though Psycho Dog Man suffered some of the exact same mockery. Who let the dogs out? His dog would make mincemeat of Hillary's.
Who let the dogs out?
Gino, CNN, New York.
Okay, so that is another type of package, and you can just do fun, creative things like that a lot. She does a lot with social media. Here's another one. You can find examples of packages, of course, local and national news. Even documentaries are often edited and shot the same way as local news packages, except they're just some are shorter. So news packages are generally like 1 minute, 30 seconds or so. Again, this Facebook group, Storytellers, amazing. Please join them. And then, of course, follow Facebook or follow Joe Little on Facebook. Here are 200 other packages that you can watch if you want some more inspiration. These are very well respected. It's On the Road with Steve Hartman. He is, an infamous. He's a journalist. So watch some of these. Let's quickly move on to just this last part here and compare two more packages. So this is a package that was done by a new young reporter, and she did all the things that I'm like warning you not to do. So let's watch this and then learn from her mistakes and try to avoid making these in the future. So sometimes it's hard to like watch good packages and be like and feel like you're learning a lot from them. But sometimes when you start watching bad packages, you're like, oh wow, okay, I'm definitely not going to do that. I'm not going to, make these mistakes. So let's watch them and identify all the things you thought you would do differently. Maybe there's some things you thought were good, but let's just pay attention to everything like shots, video, audio, and see what you think here.
Friends and family gathered here at the United Methodist Church in Sharon Springs tonight to share memories and prayers for Luke Shen, a star athlete who is beloved by everyone here in Wallace County.
We're doing what small communities do best, which is take care of each other.
Oh, it's devastating. Football team, community, the school, everything. It's a devastating blow.
He would do anything that was asked of him in 4-H, in school, in leadership, and then on the field, he was, just a great athlete and great person.
Residents say this is the third death the small western Kansas community has experienced over the last few days. Now, over the coming weeks, they plan on rallying together to support one another and get through these hard times.
The love for each other and the grace that's given by God is all we have.
In Sharon Springs, Molly Brewer, KSN News.
Or Molly. Okay. What did you think?
Why did she set this scene at the end?
Like these this video or?
That should have been at the beginning.
Yeah.
The love for each other and the great.
2 to 3 talking headshots are out of focus.
Out of focus, yeah.
It didn't really matter in this one, but when she was interviewing a guy who was sitting in a swivel chair, and usually people just move around and guys around them and
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Be careful about letting people sit in swivel chairs.
You can't put 2 different things back and it makes it harder. And it's guys around making good stuff as consistently as you can be able to.
That's a great point. I totally agree. And I actually recently made the mistake of I thought a chair it did not look like a swivel chair. Like it looked like a sturdy chair. It looked like a great, awesome chair. And I always pay attention to that. And usually you're just like, oh, it has wheels, whatever. This one I put somebody in recently, not like last year, and did an interview with them. And all of a sudden they started leaning back. It had you could lean back in it. I was like, no. And so he'd go in focus and out of focus and in focus and out of focus. So test the chairs. Like if you're setting an interview up and it's not the person's office chair or whatever, like try to test them too to make sure you can't move around in them. very much because people they'll fidget, especially when they're on camera, they get nervous. So that's a really good catch. Anybody else wanna? Yeah, what do you think?
She also had that random clip of the house, which I know she's talking about the community, but I don't know what the house was.
Yeah, what was that about?
Like, was it his house? Was it just like? Yeah.
That's oftentimes referred to as wallpaper B-roll.
Yeah.
So a lot of this was wallpaper B-roll. It wasn't specifically referencing what she was talking about. So her video and her words didn't match, and that's so difficult to create some kind of intimate storytelling when what I'm looking at has nothing to do with what I'm hearing, and so it's very distracting.
Overall, I think we didn't like spend more than 15 minutes like making up and shooting, editing the whole package. I think they could have done like a lot of better shots and spontaneous shots in this package to like convey the emotions.
Right.
It felt like a very very mainstream and regular and traditional hard news report.
Yeah, right? Don't go out and make this like keep repeating the cycle of bad TV news stories because there was no emotion in it. Does anybody even know what the story was about?
I was gonna say it felt way too big because they mentioned someone died, and then at the end you mentioned it was like one of a few in the past days, and I was like, well, what's going on? Is it suicide? Is it a serial killer? Like what's happening?
Right. You never want to evoke that emotion in your viewers. What is going on? And you've dedicated a minute of your life to this story, and you have no idea what it's about. So let's watch another station who did that same story. This was a small market, so I don't expect, and this is the script if you want to look at their script. It's still not perfect by any means. It's, still you can tell it's a young team who's making this, but it's just way different than the first story. So let's watch the competitor's version of this story and see if you feel differently when you're watching this one.
Third quarter, Wallace County High School football player Luke Shin scores on a 2-point conversion. Moments later, the senior collapses on the sidelines.
Luke has scored back-to-back touchdowns in both 2-point conversions in last night's first-round playoff game before he collapsed.
Seconds passed before paramedics arrived on scene, and Luke was transported to a local emergency room, then airlifted to a Denver area hospital. Aside from being number 4 on the state championship team, Shin was a multi-sport athlete and an active member in the Wallace County community.
Solid athlete, track, basketball, and football, great at all three. Very good student, and really liked by everyone.
Luke gave everything in life he had, in every moment, as a son, a brother, and a friend.
The question still remains as to what caused Shin's death.
After the play was finished, he was still conscious when he was running to the sideline before he collapsed.
He had a minor collision with an opposing player before entering the end zone, but it's not clear if that played a factor into the cause of his death. And Shin's parents say he did not have a known existing health condition.
In the scenario that we dealt with here, Luke was taught correctly how to hit, and he was playing and he was doing. This is about Luke and playing football.
Okay, so not perfect, but like what? Right? This is the same story? This is the same story. What do you guys think about that?
I feel like I know what happened.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I have information now.
Mm-hmm.
I know that he was playing football and he happened to go to the sidelines and then he just collapsed. I feel like that was extremely critical that the first story kind of just glazed over.
Right.
He died. It was crazy.
And you can also see what he looks like.
You can see what he looks like. You can see what he looks like. Please don't ever do a story on somebody and not take 2 seconds to get their photo. Just ask for it. Or if there's video of them collapsing, just ask for it. Like, do not do a wallpaper B-roll story when this exists. And you didn't have to shoot as much in this package. So even if it was a time thing, the first person could have said, oh, I didn't have enough time. They saved time not shooting it, and they were still able to turn it because they got that extra, the photos, what he looks like. They got the video from the day that he collapsed. It's a whole other thing. I mean, it's not perfect. There was some overmodulation in the audio. It still wasn't, the best thing in the world. But comparing those two together, wow, what a difference in just like basic communication. So, of course, you want to make wonderful, beautiful packages like the first couple that we saw. But the biggest thing that I need you to do is just make sure that you're telling stories that people understand. So your package needs to have some kind of like, oh, I understand what happened. Does anybody else want to comment on this at all? Yes.
Also, kind of leaving it open that he just collapsed, they don't know what happened, making you want to come back to see if they could ever find out. If there's ever always want to turn back in and keep up with it.
Right, and this is a reflection of a larger issue. So that's another thing that's important to understand. This isn't an isolated event. We are talking about kids collapsing on football fields and children getting hurt or dying playing football all over the country. So in addition to this, I would have broken it out maybe in the anchor lead or the reporter or the anchor tag about information on, like, this is an epidemic in our country. Like, we are talking about, special helmets. We're talking about CTE. We're talking about football. Like, this could be such a, bigger commentary on what happened. But at least now you're like, oh, invested in their story. You want to know what happened.